everybody, and welcome back to Screen Stars, and welcome to my review for Season 2 of Supernatural. My favourite show. I've been watching it for a long time now, really love the show. I've just started re-watching it. There's the review for Season 1 of Supernatural up on the channel if you want to check that out. And this is my review for Season 2. Now, I realised when I did the review for Season 1 that I actually didn't talk an awful lot about many of the episodes. Well, I'm going to change that up now from this season onwards, and as I review each season, I'm going to talk a little bit about each episode in that season. So we've got all 22 episodes, and I'm going to talk briefly about each one. Fans of the show will remember many of them. I won't give out many spoilers when I do this, but I will just talk briefly about the show, and you will see a score at the bottom of the screen rating my score for that episode. So Season 2 was a very strong season. It focused on loss, it focused on destiny and the relationship between Sam and Dean, which continued to grow through Season 2, but we'll talk a little bit more depth about each episode now. Right, the first episode of Season 2 is called In My Time of Dying, and it follows directly on from the end of Season 1, and it focuses on Dean, who is dying in a hospital bed, and the father, John Winchester, having to make a very difficult choice between himself and his son's life. And we see that play out. We see some important parts of the lore of Supernatural going forward in regards to Reapers and things like that, and it was a very strong episode. The second episode was called Everybody Loves a Clown. I don't think this was one of the strongest episodes of the season. After the emotional highs, if you like, and intensity of the first episode, this one tried to add a bit of humour into the episode and try and chill it all out a bit, and it's a decent enough episode about a clown that is killing families that Sam and Dean have to deal with, and it deals with Sam's fear of clowns, and it's not a terrible episode, it's just not one of the strongest. The third episode was called Bloodlust, and we first appearance from Sterling K. Brown's Hunter, who Dean is initially pretty pleased to meet. He's got a lot of anger issues, Dean, after the loss of their father, but this Hunter is actually really ruthless, and he's hunting down, essentially you could call them vegetarian vampires, and Sam and Dean see the error of their ways and have to fight back and protect these vampires. The fourth episode was called Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, and I think this is arguably the weakest episode of Season 2. It focuses on a zombie, about a girl who's essentially reanimated by some foolish boy who loved her desperately while she was alive, and it's Sam and Dean going to visit the grave of their dead mother, and they get embroiled in this zombie story, and it's not a particularly top episode. Episode 5 was called Simon Said, and this was another one of those episodes where Sam meets somebody with abilities similar to his own, and the person that he meets in this episode, Simon, has the ability to make people do whatever he wants them to do just by saying it to them. And it's quite a fun episode, and then they have to deal with somebody else who's got abilities, who's got a connection to Simon, and then again this again highlights the potential for Sam's powers. Episode 6 was called No Exit, and this was the episode where they've been introduced now to the Roadhouse and Ellen and her daughter, and this is the episode where her daughter, Ellen's daughter, decides to join Sam and Dean on a hunt, and they are hunting down for the very first serial killer, one of the first serial killers who's killing people in an apartment block. However, it becomes pretty dangerous, certainly for one of them, and it's not a terrible episode, it's pretty good actually, this one. Episode 7 is called The Usual Suspects, and a pretty good episode, an interesting one because we get an appearance by Linda Blair from The Exorcist, who plays a police officer, and Sam and Dean are arrested and then charged with murder. However, they've got to then convince Linda Blair's police officer that Jason Gedrick, who's also in this episode, may well be the guilty party here, and they have to try and convince her that something supernatural is actually going on. Episode 8 is called Crossroad Blues, a very strong episode, and this is our first introduction essentially to crossroad demons, even though we were introduced a little bit briefly at the beginning of the season. This is their first real introduction, and they've become such a big part of the show. And a really fun, enjoyable episode where essentially they have to try and protect people who've made deals with crossroad demons, and we are also introduced to hellhounds for the first time. Episode 9, and I'm going to pronounce this wrong, I always do, is Croatoan. And again, another strong episode, and this is the one where Sam and Dean go to this like town out in the hills somewhere that's got some kind of demon disease going on, where people start going mad and killing each other for no apparent reason, and Sam becomes infected. Everybody fears he's going to die, and then it all kind of stops all of a sudden. A really cool episode. Episode 10 is called Hunted. Sterling K. Brown returns in this episode, and he is this time on the hunt for Sam, because he has caught wind that Sam may in fact have some kind of demon powers, some demon blood connection, and he thinks that Sam is evil and he should be killed immediately. So this episode focuses on that, Dean trying to protect his brother, and Dean finally reveals what their father said to him at the beginning of season 2 about Sam. Episode 11 is called Playthings. An okay episode, not one of the strongest, where they visit an old-fashioned hotel that is being haunted, and guests are being basically killed by this spirit. So Sam and Dean turn up in the hopes of trying to figure out what is going on. A decent enough episode. There's a couple of humorous moments. There's a fun bit where Sam gets drunk and things like that, but it's not bad at all. Episode 12 is called Nightshifter. Another very strong episode. This is another shapeshifter episode. We had one of these in the first season, and this time they're on a trail of the shapeshifter that has gone to a bank to try and rob it, and however Sam and Dean's plans are foiled because an obsessed person that's been tracking this thing that thinks it's some kind of mandroid shuts down the bank, takes control. However, there is no way out for any of them until they find this shapeshifter. Episode 13, House of the Holy. A pretty poignant episode this, quite a religious, quite a thought-provoking episode in regards to are angels real, all this kind of stuff, and we learn that Sam is a believer, Dean isn't, and this essentially focuses on these downtrodden people that are supposedly visited by an angel who tells them to kill supposedly evil people. So quite an interesting episode for sure. Episode 14, Born Under a Bad Sign, one of the strongest episodes this season, and one that plays on Dean's fears and Sam's fears that is going to turn evil when he apparently does in this episode, but he is in fact not, and he has been visited, shall we say, by a demon that we met in season 1. A very, very good episode, and it's really cool to see Sam playing the bad guy, and he does it really, really well in this episode. A lot of fun. Episode 15, Tall Tales, another strong episode, and we are introduced to the Trickster for the first time, who we see much more of as the seasons go on. Again, a very fun, humorous episode that Supernatural is so good at doing, injecting humour into these episodes where Sam and Dean have to investigate these bizarre cases of people being eaten by crocodiles in the sewers or abducted by UFOs, but in actual fact, it's the Trickster. Episode 16, Roadkill. Really brilliant episode, I think. When I watched this one with my wife was in tears at the end of this episode. A very emotional episode. Tricia Helfer from Battlestar Galactica makes a guest appearance in this episode, where Sam and Dean investigate a roadside haunting of an accident that happened years earlier, and Tricia Helfer's character is involved in it somehow. A very poignant, very moving episode, and I think really, really cool. Another emotional episode, episode 17, is called Heart. This is a werewolf episode where we're introduced to them for the first time, and Sam and Dean are on the trail of a werewolf that is taking people out, connected to this young woman who Sam and Dean have to then protect, and Sam has essentially falls in love with this person, but she might have a closer connection to this werewolf that both Sam and Dean actually realise. A really, really nice episode with a real emotional kick at the end. Episode 18, Hollywood Babylon, a perfectly fine episode, not a strong one. We get Gary Cole guest starring in this, and this is Sam and Dean on the set of like a movie that is haunted by some spirit that in actual fact may well have something to do with somebody connected to the crew of this film set that's got a personal vendetta against some of them there. So like I say, nothing wrong with it really, it's just not that strong. Episode 19, Folsom Prison Blues. I think a particularly strong episode in season 2. I really quite enjoyed this one, where Sam and Dean purposely get sent to jail because they know or hear of a spirit inside this jail that is taking out prisoners, and Sam and Dean have been personally asked to investigate it by a friend of their father. So they have to break into prison, figure this out, and then get out of prison again. And episode 20 is What Is and What Should Never Be. Arguably the strongest episode in season 2, and one of the strongest, and would probably be in most people's top 10 supernatural episodes. And this one focuses on Dean, who is taken hostage by a Jen, or a genie, who makes him think he is living the life that he would live if he had never become a hunter with Sam. And it's a really, really nice episode. And episodes 21 and 22 are parts 1 and 2. All hell breaks loose. Very, very strong episodes. The first episode focuses on Sam, who is now put in like an arena with the other gifted children, with all these abilities, and they've got to kind of fight it out. And then the second episode deals with Dean. How does he cope with his personal loss, and how do they move forward? And finally they have a huge confrontation with Yellow Eyes at the end of this episode. However, they open the gates of hell briefly, which will lead perfectly on to season 3 as they have unleashed hundreds of demons into the world. So there you go, that is Supernatural Season 2. So I've spoken briefly about all of the episodes, given you my ratings for each of the episodes, hopefully reminded you how many great episodes there were in Season 2. I'm going to give this season an overall score of 8.8 out of 10. I do think it was a very, very strong season. We'll be focusing on Season 3. I'm just in the middle of watching that now with my wife. There's only 16 episodes in Season 3, so it won't take just as long. So I look forward to Season 3 in a couple of weeks. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this review.